Okay. A very good morning to all. In today's session, we're going to learn what is exactly the marketing environmental analysis and marketing research. So let's begin with the introduction. As we know that marketing is a very crucial component or element in any of the business operation, and for any business, it is very important to understand what was the market forces to challenge your business operations in terms of the various externals and internal factors like competition, trends, any new technology or regulatory changes or regulations. And that's what the term originates, that is called the environmental analysis, that how the particular business could evaluate the external and internal forces, and accordingly whatever the opportunities would come in any of the business way, and the threats as well, and accordingly the business could analyze and make up an informed decisions. The next is what is marketing environmental analysis. So when we talk about the marketing environmental analysis, it's just a strategic analysis tool which always assists to identify all those internal or external factors of the environment which ultimately affects their own organizational operations or the business activities. And it is very necessary to evaluate the environmental factors so that whatever the work operates in an organization, it's ultimately work smoothly. So while analyzing the factors, whether it's related to internal within the organization or outside the organization, a particular business leader always develop a company policies or structure as well as the culture, so that everyone, whether the employees, employers, or originates, would get a specified guidelines to work accordingly. So a business success is always dependent how the particular business or organizations deals with the external environment effects, if any, arise in the particular scenario, business scenario. So when we talk about the marketing environmental analysis, so especially when we talk about this term, it always analyze the business externals environment so that they can easily find out what would be the threat and what would be the opportunities available. And once they analyze the threats and opportunities of the external factors, would be the legal, would be the technology, would be the political, would be the social, would be the economic, would be the natural forces. So all these forces when collectively comes, so automatically it's very necessary to analyze their threats, their opportunities for the business operation. And once the evaluation is to be done, whatever the decision makers develop the strategies, and accordingly they respond to the environment, and the business organization will take up you can say a soundful decisions after analyzing the external and internal forces about the business organizations. So the next is the whatever the business market stands for. So the business market will always be a dynamic where the everyone or the every business leader would always try to develop the new ideas, the products, which always compete in the market, and suddenly the whole scenarios changes. So once a particular business leader try to create a new ideas and the new products which ultimately give a competition into the market, and suddenly there was a time comes when the whole scenario changes, so automatically the business leader, even the business organization, cannot control any of the factors, external factors or internal factors according to that particular period of time, due to which they have to maintain or prepare the all the business strategies so that whatever the risk involved related to the external or internal factors could immediately minimize it. So there are so many business strategies where the various business organization at present which always work on, and the most popular business strategy is spatial analysis. P stands for political, E stands for economic, S stands for social, T stands for technology, L stands for legal, E stands for economic. So when these forces, the analysis part is to be done, and how it to be done, it to be done through the market environmental analysis, and this is a tool that how such you can say the forces could be evaluate what would be the you can see threats and opportunities are available related to these factors, and how much the influence of these forces would occur into a particular business organization. So this analysis tool is crucial for the business success. It's not a one-time activity. As I told that the market is always be a dynamic. So automatically every business leader always make a business strategies, but it's not necessary that that particular business strategy would work at that particular point of time. So always make a business strategies to minimize the risk involved related to the all these forces, whether it's related to political, regulatory, law, so that to whatever the analysis is to be done, it should be repeated, and such analysis should be repeated continuously to deal with the competitive advantage, and accordingly they respond to such forces, whether external and internal, within relate to the organization should be positively. So whatever the response is to be given, it should be given positively, and whatever the analysis to be done by adopting the business strategies. So it could be repeated continuously to deal with the competitive advantage. This is an example of the marketing environmental analysis. For example, if we take if a business sells the environmentally friendly nature products, automatically they have to conduct the environmental analysis, how the government regulations would impact its business operation. So automatically now the business will begin to evaluate the political factors, the legal forces, the regulatory framework, that where to determine, to analyze whether the government should intends to tighten the regulations or to introduce the new ones, or maybe they would investigate the legal forces to check whether the whatever the existing whatever the existing regulation whatever the existing regulation, it always relate to the environmental issues. So any company who are making up any friendly or nature products, so whatever the forces involved in it, whether it would be the political, whether it would be the environmental, whether it would be the legal framework, the business has to analyze these particular factors, whether the new rules and regulation imposed by the government or any new rules has been introduced. Accordingly, the business has to investigate whatever the legal forces, whatever the legal factors involved in it, to check whether the existing regulation would relate to the environmental issues or not. So this is how the environmental analysis tool would work, and the various, and accordingly the business strategies would be adopted according to the situations. Next, we talk about The benefits of the environmental analysis. So the environmental analysis offers various benefits to the various types of the business. The first main benefit or the advantage is to gain a clear understanding of their market position, strength, and weaknesses. So always, one of the main benefit of this analysis is it gives you or gives any business any business organization a clear understanding of their what would be the position of in the market, what would be the strength, what would be the weaknesses, what would be the opportunities available in that particular market. The second benefit is to identify what would be the emerging and invented trends, and accordingly the business could act before their competitor gain a particular, you can say, competitive advantage. The next one, it always, through such analysis, it always become a competitive to understand whatever the ever-changing business environment scenarios for a particular business organization as well. Next one is the limitation of environmental analysis, and it is worth noting that the environmental analysis has its limitation. So there are two main limitations. The first one is it is impossible to predict. It is very difficult and it's a very challenging task that how a particular business organization could predict with uncertainties, with the certainties, and how and what level of risk involved in that uncertainties events, which ultimately affects the business organizations and you can see the activities, regardless of doing a detailed environmental analysis on that. The second disadvantage is the cost and time. Always be the cost factor and time factors involved in any kind of investigation, in any kind of analysis related to the environmental forces. It could be a challenging task or a work for the businesses that actually for those organizations it would be a challenging where the resources are actually lacking. So these are the two main limitations of the environmental analysis, which is impossible to predict the future scenarios of, or you can see the uncertainty certain events. And the second one is cost and time factors for all those particular organizations where the exact resources are actually lacking. Next one is categories of the environmental analysis. So automatically there are two main categories. The first one is macro environment and the second one is micro environment. When we talk about macro environment are more in general in nature. It's related to the whole environment and in the particular economy itself. So we can talk as an economy as a whole. So the whatever the environmental forces involved in it, we considered as a whole into an economy, and it always show up that how would be the effect of such environment on all the business groups, that how whether they operate, whether they perform, whether to make decisions or to formulate the strategy simultaneously. So automatically it is a quick dynamic, which always means that business has to track whatever the changes they have seen during the business activities, and it always try to investigate or consist all the external factors that a company itself doesn't have any control, but automatically it's in some way it affects to business operations as well. So the factors which are actually make up the macro environment, that is economic factors, demographic factors, technological factors, nature factors, physical factors, political factors, legal factors, social factors, and the culture factors. So when we combine all these forces together, it becomes the environmental forces in the economy as a whole. So this is called the macro environment. The next one is the second category of the environmental analysis is the micro environment. Micro environment is the environment that has always have a direct impact on their business, and the macros always have an indirect impact on their business. So in the macro environment, the companies know exactly what would be the factors which ultimately influence to their business operations. So it exactly related to a particular area that would be the relate to the customers, it relate to the suppliers, it relate to the reseller, it relate to the competitors, it relate to the general public. Company know about it, how they will operate, how they will work on these particular factors which ultimately affect all of their business operation or processes as well. So it consists of all those factors which ultimately or directly influence their businesses, and that is exactly called the micro environment. They always the business leaders always have an ability to influence that how they will work and operate into a particular environment which influence due to the various factors related to the customers issues, suppliers issues, competitors issues. So they have to work how they could operate while considering or understanding or investigating these particular factors. So automatically the effect, it's not the under this microenvironment, the influence of these factors may not be a long run, it would be a short run as well. But how the company would operate into a short run and how to tackle these issues of forces and what strategies they will operate, that is basic understanding of such environment, that is called micro environment. So these are the key differences between the micro environment and the macro environment. So automatically when we talk about for the business perspective or the company's perspective, the micro environment is always you can say closest circle of its neighbors, that whatever the forces involved in it, they just surround of that particular circle only. That is called the micro environment. It could be the suppliers, it could be the customers, it could be the competitors, it could be the resellers, etc. So that is the macro environment. Macro environments like a whole city which operates and where the big forces are involved in it and how they affect everyone through the various you can say large forces like political, legal, social, culture, natural. So these are the big forces which ultimately influence the economy of a country, and of course it affects everyone in every way. So that kind of environment is called macro environment. While in the second difference, I could say the microenvironment factors are the very close contact which ultimately influence the specific type of the businesses. If any business is related to the textile, and automatically the fact of forces, the macro forces or factors will ultimately influence on the textile industry. So the business will operate on a specific sector, then whatever the forces will impact on the that particular specific factor, and that is called the micro environment factor. But in case of the macro environment forces, it's always a key, a weather always keeps on changing, the particular forces keeps on changing. Anytime such external forces would come and influence the business operation, and ultimately it influence all the players who are actually working into the market. So such a macro environment influence everything. It's including all those present players who are working into a market for their businesses. Then the third difference is the business can train some micro environment factors. They can easily, you can say, shift to the forces from one particular you can see factors or not, as the business can train some micro environmental factors like choosing suppliers or targeting the specific customers. So they can train from one factors to another factors, or they can come to the second factor to third factor. So they can easily train such micro environmental factors which ultimately directly influence their businesses. But macro forces like inflation, the government policies are completely out of control, because micro environment have their own control. They can shift forces from according to the specific businesses, or they can swing the micro environmental factors from one to another, but macro couldn't be, because macro environmental factors cannot be trained, cannot be controlled. It is out of the control, and within the out of the situation, how the business operates. That is a biggest challenge for the you can say business organization in case of the macro environment. The firm feels the immediate and the regular ripples of the micro environment, and macro environment cast a broader and the slower moving shadow. So automatically, when the business organizations operate into any of the market, they always operate on the regular changes. They work accordingly, and they can take up an informed decisions in case of macro environment, because whatever the factors influence, they have an action to take up, and accordingly they will improve it immediately. But macro environment is always in a broader in scope, and it always keeps in a very slowing moving process. That there are various forces to investigate, and if they came to know, the business came to know the forces, then ultimately they will adopt, and slowly they work and take up an informed decision, and it will not take a months and taken years to work on that. So that is called the macro environment. So on a daily, the last difference is that on the daily basis, firms have a direct work on the various competitors, customers, and suppliers, and keeps changing on it. So they have a direct interaction with all of the forces. But when we talk about in case of the macro environment, like the economy and the government policies, it always take a longer, or you can say a long, everlasting time period, will automatically influence the business time to time. So that is a big, you can say, influential factors, you can say, in case of the macro environment, because after all, it is out of the control situation for the businesses, and any time could emerge into a market, and any government rule, a new rules has been introduced, and how it could be adopted by the firms at that particular, and how the existing rules could work on. So that is comes under the macro environment, and that's why it take a long years to change. So if any new rule has been introduced, or any new taxation rule has been introduced by the government of India, and how the companies would adopt and immediately adapt such rules, it will take a long years, and that's one of the difference between the macro and the micro environment. So the next is what would be the macro environment factors. The first one is economic factors. So basically, when we talk about the economic factors, so automatically in this particular category, or of the macro environment, the two essential aspects need to understand. The first one is what would be the company level of production, and how the decisions making process would be goes on of the customers. So that is called the economic factors, because ultimately the economic status of the company would totally depends on these two particular aspects: the level of the production and what would be the decision making process of the customers of the company. So these are the basic examples of the, you can see some of the examples of basic examples of the economic factors which ultimately affects the business. The first one is interest rates. Second one is exchange rates. The third one is recession, inflation, taxes, and demand and supply of the goods. You can say, or any products or any new products which has been introduced into a market. So these are the economic factors which ultimately influence the financial position or the status of the company. The next one is demographic forces, and ultimately here we are all talk about the demographic factors that exist into a market. That means we call, in other words, it's a universal demographic forces of factors like age of the customer, education level, cultural characteristics, what would be the country of the customer, reason, what would be their lifestyle, marital status, etc. So these are the variables that count under demographic factors which ultimately influence the business operation, whether companies should make up a product according to the age factors, according to the education, according to the cultural perspective. So these are the variables that comes under the demographic factors, that how the income variables influences the businesses, what would be the age variables that affect their businesses, what would be the geographical reasons and education levels as well. So these comes under the demographic factors. Next one is technological factors. So these factors is related to the skills and abilities that has been introduced by the company into a production level, as well as what would be the materials and the technology used or in introducing or in making up or preparing up the finished product. So automatically it requires such skills and the abilities while creating a new product into a market, and so on. So and automatically technological factors have a big impact at how the company businesses would run on. And of course, what kind of the equipments would always be used so that it run on for a long period of time for to operate their business activities or the business production. So some of the most common technological factors could be in automation, because they all deals with the technology and what the type of the activities, the financial activities or the business activities could be done or could be operated through technologically only. So this is automation, internet connectivity, 3D technology, speed and power of the computer's calculations, engine performance of the various equipments and tools, securities, what would be the type of the security in terms of cryptography, and then last one is wireless charging. So this is how, and automatically these technologies would indirectly influence the business operations. The next one is natural and physical forces. So every business automatically must have to consider into an account the planet and its resources. If they are making up a friendly nature products, then automatically they have to look upon the consider factors related to the planet and associate resources as well. So it could be renewed, such as forest, agricultural products, but some particular products cannot be renewed, such as oil, mineral oil, etc. So automatically these two particular categories, it's always related to the production, and that's actually called the natural and the physical forces. So such forces are classified into various parts: the climate change, of course, the part of the you can say planet, population, in weather, what would be the weather conditions, whether the non-renewable and the renewable resources are actually available into a planet or not, and what would be the laws to regulate the environment, survival of the particular biological spices. So this is how the company should consider these factors while introducing or making up, you can say, impactful product. The next one is political and legal forces, as political and legal forces are also one of the most important factor into various areas. So always in this particular factor, business has to keep up and update with such forces worldwide and prepare and make up a right decisions according to it. So there are various legal factors. It could be a copyright law, employment law, any fraud, security law, discrimination law, health and safety law, any export and import law. So these are the legal factors that actually work, and the business consider these laws while introducing any type of product or any type of activities involved into such a business operation. So accordingly, the law has been, you can say, adopted by the businesses. The next one is social and cultural forces. So automatically, it is also one of the most important force to understand that whatever the product is being introduced or into a market, they have a huge impact on the societies itself. So if any production needs to eliminate any kind of practice which always harmful to a society, and automatically it is a social responsible factor for the business organization. And there are various, you can say, factors, and some of them has been mentioned on the screen. What would be the purchasing habits of the customers? What would be the level of education that exists into a particular market among the customers? What would be the religion and the beliefs? What would be the consciousness about the health issues, social classes? What would be the structure and the size of a family, and population growth rate, life expectancy rate, different lifestyles of the customers? Then all such factors comes under the social and cultural factors, because these factors which always portray the social and the cultural status of the individuals and the customers who are actually interact with the companies, or you can say associate with the companies for a particular or specific products. The next one is micro environment factors. So the first one is customers, and of course there should be a very strong customer base for a company, which ultimately attracts the others, and it would be a chances that their purchasing power of the customers towards a particular product would become higher. So when a particular, you can say, the purchasing power to increase towards a particular product, it is important to create the marketing campaigns by the businesses as well. So they can come up a new idea that is called the product photography ideas, where the advantages of the items could display on an offer, and this is also the one of the marketing principles as well. So you can any company can prefer business to customers, or business to business at an international or the local or the domestic levels as well. So automatically there should be an automated, you can see, contact center. There should be a cloud-based center, so that they will help to solve the queries on an immediate seconds, and have a smooth communication and support with a diverse customer segments as well. So they, when it talks about the factors that involves under the first category, that is customers, in case of the micro environment, the stability of demand, how much would be the sales growth, profitability, what would be, how much the intense competition would be. So that would be the factors that relates to the customers, and ultimately these those factors where the customers actually create such factor, that is demand, sale, profits, and competition. The next one is suppliers. So if any supplier of a particular products, then automatically it would be the largest, and only the one option would be the left, that would be a big influence on its own business. So the supplier is also the one of the most important part of the micro environment and ultimately directly influence your business activities. So it should be a key link into a value delivery process. What would be the insurance part, that your product has the necessary resources to get the insurance from the insured, you can say, companies. What would be the essential determinants in the, if in case the prices increase and decreases of a particular product. So how the suppliers would influence, which have a suppliers have a direct influence on the particular business. Next one is resellers. So if you decide to sell a product to a third party reseller or any kind of middlemen such as wholesalers, retailers, then ultimately the success of your marketing is automatically depends on them only. So if there should be a retail seller, a certain retail sellers would be available in the market to have a strong reputations of your own business, so that your product would be easily sell off through them. So they are automatically there, or when we talk about the resellers, so there should be a strong link between the particular, the, you can say, the resellers, the middlemen, or you can say the particular what we call the retail seller, and of course the customer. So there is a strong relation between them. So it is important to understand the various factors that actually resellers deals with. That is promotion, sales, distribution, how would be the marketing, what would be the medical financial resources would involve in that. So that is a part of the resellers factors. Next one is competition. Of course, competitors are always been involved in any business, and that actually tell us that how much the product would get succeed into a market through the you can see customers. So sales and marketing strategies are always matters in this particular force, and it is very important to answer all those questions, that how the product and price would influence yours product and the other products to gain a competitive advantage. So there are three main factors, but in case of the competitors, that is the desire competition, product form competition, and brand competition. So desire competition, what would be the expectancy towards purchasing a particular product, what type of the forms of the products are available to compete from one business to another, or the brand competition. There are so many brands in the market, and there's so many competitors, so many brands, so many competitors involved in it. So how the competitors, you can say, and how such competitors and competitors environment would actually influence directly to their own businesses, sales and profits, and their own revenues as well. And the last one, or the last factor of the micro environment, is the general public. So every business organization would always work at its own best level to appeal, or you can to convey the general public. So whatever the step you can do, the company take, it always be viewed from the customer or the public perspective as well. And it is equally important to understand that if any business operations or any business action which ultimately affects others also, because of the different opinions and the views which always give us success to one and the pulls down the other. And that is the one of the factor called a general public. So the general public factors are very much important in terms of the opinions, that is a public opinion, the media, the environmental population. So this is a main factors which ultimately influence, indirectly influence on, directly influence on the micro environment. So this is the three main factors in case of the general public. Now we come up to the next concept, that is marketing research. Marketing research is, in a simple sense, I could define, is a study which offer multiple techniques where the particular companies could use in order to gain some information about their target customers, about their target market, what would be the condition of the current market. So when any organization or any researcher study, you can see about their target audience, about the condition of the current market, using up various multiple techniques where which the company used in order to gain a maximum information, and that is called the marketing research. The one of the main purpose of the marketing research is to gain the maximum data or the information related to the company's, you can say, perspective, or related to the company's related trends, that is current trends, profits, losses, what would be the economic and social factors involved in it, which ultimately influence the market, what would be the marketing strategies used. So whatever the research is to be done is related to the market. What would be the marketing strategies? What would be the factors that influence the market for a business organization? So this is called the marketing research. So by utilizing such researched information, the companies and the producer which immediately improve the quality of the products, what would be their advertising tactics, and what would be the other marketing strategies that they used for their business operations or activities. So marketing research is always helps to the companies to know exactly the requirements of the customers and develop the strategies that will help them to reach out of their customers towards a particular product. And ultimately, if there is a more and more involvement of the parties, that means then parties related to the suppliers or some competitors, then the producers and the consumer, then definitely the direct gap between both, that is, you can see any of the both parties, and ultimately it decrease. So direct involvement would get decreased if more and more involvement of the various parties would get increased. So scope of the marketing research, the first one is research on market, that automatically when you are doing a marketing research, then automatically how would you go, how would you research on the market? It could be the current market strength, you can research about the current products available in the market. So it automatically you can make up a comparison between the current and the potential market as well. And the following areas where you can make a comparison of it would be the size of the product, what would be the analysis of the market share, how would you select the target market in in the particular business scenario, how would you analyze the need and the demand for a new product, how would you set up the sale territories and the quotas for a particular set of the customers, how would you assess the current market trends and the project future market trends. So it's like how would you comparison and investigate the current market and the projecting future market trends. So that is one of the scope of marketing research. The next one is research on advertising. So advertisements is always considered the one of the major part of the marketing. It depends upon the higher and the lower budget. So if a company make an effective advertisement, ultimately they requires the higher budget and vice versa. So there are the selective studies where the research could be done. That is a selection of media will be used for advertisement and what type of media and what perspective you can research on it. Selection of an advertising channels as well. Studying promotion elements. What would be the promotion elements or the techniques? What would be the positive and the negative effect of advertisements in society market? What would be the role of advertising in the different product life cycles as well? What would be the government restrictions on the advertisement campaigns? How a particular researcher study the competitive advertising strategies and practices in respect of any industry or the company as well. So these are the following areas of related to the advertising studies where a particular researcher or an individual who work and research on it. Next one is research on pricing. Any researcher can research on the pricing policies, the pricing strategies of a new product. Anyone can study the offers and discount, how such offers and discounts has been generated to convince the customers, how the comparison is to be made between the quality and the price of the products of old, existing, and the new products as well. So this is how the various analysis relate to the pricing a particular individual could research on it. What would be the price strategies of a different product's life cycle? So if you can take a one product, just study the product life cycle, just investigate what would be the pricing strategies of the different stages of that particular new product. That is also a new area that a particular individual could research on it. A new product and the pricing policies as well. Next one is research on distribution. So in today's marketing world, distribution plays a very important role in the business, and it ultimately play a very important role in the success of a product. So it would very important to investigate a selection of a proper distribution channel is very important. So there are many distribution channels which used between the producers and the consumers, and on what perspective relate to the distribution or selling and distribution a particular individual could research in the various you can say areas, that is how studying of the various distribution channels of a particular company or towards a particular product. Selection from how would be a selection process what goes on between the direct and indirect distribution channels of a product in respect of a particular company. What would be the studying online marketing factors involved in a new product or the existing product of a particular company. You can select any company. Studying the factors and strategies used for distribution channels. How a particular individual can study the physical distribution process and the ancillary services as well. The next one is research on products. So there are plenty of the products. So plenty of the life cycles of the products where you can see a particular researcher or individual could research on it. So there are various areas where the which could be covered to study, that is the characteristics of the product, or you can make a comparison of the characteristics of a new and existing product. What would be the uses of the product? How would you study the other competitors which are available in the market? What would be the problems faced by the consumers, and how would you study? Studying the life cycle of the products, packaging and sale, etc. And how would you determine the uses of the existing products? Finding out the need for new product development. and the product life cycle of a, or you can say a new or existing product, how you can compare that product life cycles of an existing new product. That are also another area that a particular individual research on it. So it could be you can take any product of any company and you can study the product life cycle practically. Consumer adoption study there, the like you can how the consumers adopt the products, what would be the purchase, their purchasing power, ability, their perceptions, their knowledge. You can study accordingly. So this is also the good areas to study where the particular research could be done by an individual and the researcher. Next one is research on sales method and policies. So this is also the one of the scope that it consists of various studies related to the sales of a product. For sales, of course, the distribution of the product, it is important. What would be the strategies is being adopted to improve the overall business and the overall profit. There are various areas to study that covers the various you can see points, that is how studying the sales methods that currently being used by the companies for any product, what would be the sales records to begin an analysis, how you can study the management of the sales force or the various parameters such as size and control. Even you can study the sales department processes of the various company, and even you can compare and analyze accordingly. You can also study the advertisements and the incoming customers traffics. You can see on relate to the sales. You can study the activities and the effectiveness of the salesmen towards a particular product or towards a different product. So these are the various areas where the particular individual and researcher could study and make a you can say synopsis or a project on such topics relate to the particular industry or product. Next one is research on the business environment and corporate responsibility. So automatically, whatever the business would make a product, it's also fulfill. You can see that corporate responsibilities of a particular environment that involved in it. So automatically, the one if any business you can see prepare a particular new product that ultimately relate or study their marketing problems as well. So if the study is conducted on a for a big business, so accordingly you have to analyze the data and what would be the business strategies would adopted. You have to study and work on that and work accordingly in it. So there are various researches for the analysis, that is the availability of the product related resources, long-term and the short-term goals of the businesses, social, financial, culture factors that affect the business, income, economic growth, and the policies for the businesses, impacts of acts and the legal provisions, and what would be technological aspects involved in it. The next part is a marketing research process. So what is marketing research process? It's just a terminology which is mainly used to describe the development and the actual concepts of the various products and the service, its awareness, its brand, what would be the overall progress of the research. So there are various importance to understand that if the various marketing mix factors. So if a company launch a particular new product, they have to understand the four main factors of the marketing, that is product, price, place, and promotion. So even if a particular company is studying the consumer behavior patterns, then automatically marketing research would be conducted to ask to ask or to identify the behavior of the customers through a particular survey tool. Marketers is also need to know what would be the expectations of the customers, what would be the current market trends, what would be the interest of the customers towards a new product, and automatically every study needs marketing research. But how to perform that research, marketing research? There is a certain process, and this is all about the process that's called marketing research process. So let's begin with the first step. There are 7 stages in the marketing research process. The first is define the problem. Every research area and every particular term always denotes a problem, and you have to define that problem. So defining the marketing research problem is always the first step of the research process. And research starts with the when starts when the market face any problem. So a particular individual has to identify the problems, the issues, and the concern first, and then the research would begin. So the problem should be related to the causes, the results, the effects, the solutions to solve on it. So if any market has faces a problem, so the particular researcher has to answer why and how related to the problem. So problem need to be defined in detail, and the definitions of the problem consist of these four of forces. What would be the cause and factors or responsibles related to the problem? What problems, if the problems occur due to what you can say errors, or what due to the what type of the occurrence of any such error? What would be the solutions and the methods that could be applied to solve that problem? That means the suggestions and the techniques. What would be the strategies and the techniques is to be adopted or used further to avoid them? So that is also the first stage of the marketing research process. Next stage is planning the research design. So research design is a blueprint of the whole research. That means the market research. So it defined as a strategies which always being used to conduct the market research, how the data is to be collected to fulfill the objectives of the research or objectives of the study. The research design is always consist of techniques, methods, the procedures which always being used to collect the relevant data. So there are 3 types of marketing research design, that is exploratory, descriptive, and the casual. So the first one is exploratory. So in order to gain the facts and opinions regarding any problem or any specific topic, the exploratory research design is used. So to use such research, you need to study journals, books, magazine, various publication, various type of statistical or trend data, and the interviews to be used. So if you are adopting an exploratory study to explore the area, to explore the particular top research topic, so automatically you can use all these tools. Next one is descriptive. So what would be the descriptive way? So descriptive research study could be used if you have any problem and you have to make up a specific decision on it and just track the performances about it, about that particular solution. So descriptive research needs to be well-defined analysis and the measured statistically. Casuals, it could be percentage, it could be mean, median, mode, and standard deviation, and any type of the eligibility or the casual criteria, scoring criteria that to become comes under descriptive research. Next one is casual. So if you are making up any or to prepare a relationship or to study the relationship or the you can say the cause and effect relationship of the various variables, demographic variables or the mean variables, that casual research study could be conducted. So if you are making up any relationships or studying the cause and effect relationship, then casual research would be the most appropriate study, and it always been used to adopt the theories and the experiment to study the particular project. The next step is selecting a sample. So if you are studying any kind of studying on the customers, studying on the salesmen, so you need to define a samples, a smaller unit from the population chosen, that is called a sample, for the further analysis. So to select the sample, these are the various types. Which sample is to be select from the available population units? What type of technique to be used? Is a probability sampling or a non-probability sampling? What would be the sample size of that particular variable? So it totally depends upon the cost and the accuracy of the decision. So if you are taking in accurate decisions, then automatically the marketing research process related to a particular study would goes well. Next one is collecting the data. So the data could be collected through various channels. So it could be the operational data and the experience data. Operational data, we can talk about the type of data that describes the cost, sales, profits, revenue, content related information. That is the numeric data, we could say. The experience data that describe the experiences and the thoughts and views, that is more qualitative. Operational are the more quantitative. So describe the experience and the thoughts of the customers, sellers, distributors, and the users or public as well. So even while you're collecting a data, survey tool could be used through the social media platforms like you can use the email, Slack, WhatsApp, Telegram, SMS, etc. to reach and more customers. So if you are doing a survey to get to know or to identify to assess the knowledge of the customers, you can use these survey tool, and you can adopt social media platform, etc. So that's it for today. I will continue in the upcoming session. Till time, thank you for listening the lecture, and namaste to all.
आपसे एक बात बोली थी सुबह, मैंने बोली थी, मैं देखो आपको कोई वो नहीं होता, कोई प्रॉब्लम बोल सकता हूँ।
वो बात